Alrighty, well, good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrew Dolphiny and I'm the Instruction and Outreach Librarian at the New Jersey State Library. April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, so it is my pleasure to present our speaker for today, Noelle Santos from the Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey. Noelle is going to be talking about some distracted driving facts and some statistics, reasons for distracted driving, and then ways that we can limit distractions to make everybody safer. So Noelle currently works as a public education coordinator for the Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey with a focus on transportation safety. She recently graduated from Rutgers University last May with a Bachelor of Science in Public Health and a minor in Sociology. Prior to her current work, Noelle interned for the Trauma and Injury Prevention Department at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital. So welcome, Noelle. And again, thank you so much for speaking with our patrons today. Before we jump into Noelle's presentation, I just have a few housekeeping items to go over. First and foremost, we will be taking your questions throughout the program today, so please feel free to submit them at any time using the Q&A or the chat feature in the Zoom dashboard. A copy of the slides will be available in the chat momentarily, so if you have an opportunity, you can download them from there. If you have trouble downloading them from the chat, don't worry, they will be available as an email attachment in the follow-up email that I will be sending out. There will be a survey available at the end of the webinar, so if you have time, we ask you please complete the survey. We appreciate any and all feedback that you can give us. And if you want more information on distracted driving, there is a web address on the screen there. I will send that out in the chat as well so that you have a live link to it. Please visit that, for more information about what Noelle's going to talk about today. One last thing before we jump in, I just want to do a brief overview of the Zoom dashboard. This is what your dashboard should look like if you are using a PC or a Mac. If you're using a mobile device, the dashboard may look a little bit different, but all of the features will still be there. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can check your audio settings. So if you're using an external listening device like a headset or earbuds, you can make sure that it's connected properly there. At any point during the presentation, if you run into any issues, there is a raise hand button here in the middle. You can click on that and that'll alert me. I will send you a message in Zoom and hopefully be able to resolve any problems that you are having. And as I mentioned before, if you do have any questions, you can use the Q&A or the chat buttons and send them to us at any time, and we'll be happy to address them. So that is everything that I have for you. So it's my pleasure to turn it over to Noelle now.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you to the NJ State Library for hosting this webinar. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you all so much for attending. So right now, I'll just share my screen to the presentation. One moment. Okay, so now before we begin, we do have a Share the Road pledge. By signing this pledge, you are signing to be a safe driver and a safe rider. You are also pledging to share the road with all roadway users. As you know, we only have one road, but we have many roadway users. We have drivers, we have bicyclists, we have motorcyclists, pedestrians, and many more. So it's very important to share the road. And also when you sign this pledge, you're entering in a raffle to win a $50 gift card. So I'll just take a moment, maybe wait a couple seconds if people want to take a picture of the slide of their phones so they could sign up for our pledge. Okay, so we'll move on from that. I could also send Andrew the pledge and the QR code if you're still interested. So again, thank you for joining me today. Today, I'll be talking about distracted driving, tips for road safety and sharing the road, a driving and pedestrian safety program. Okay, now about the Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey, we work to support and advocate for individuals with brain injuries as well as their families. We also go into communities to try to educate the public to stop brain injuries from happening in the first place. Now, in the chat, what are some ways that you can possibly get brain injuries? Some ways to possibly get a brain injury is through maybe falling, maybe getting hit in the head, and also car crashes. Brain injuries are very serious, and so they may be a concussion that leaves you with a headache for weeks, or you could end up with as a completely different person than you were before. Brain injury and the importance of being a safe driver may not be something we might think about until it personally affects us. Like a lot of things in life, but before we get to that point, let's take a step back to look at what we can do to prevent this thing. So now before we start, if you want to put something in the chat or let us know, we're going to take a survey. So let us know if you know someone who has had a brain tumor before. Usually when I ask this question, there might not be a lot of people, but there are some people who do know someone. Okay, now think about if you know someone who has suffered a stroke before. Usually with this question, we do get a couple more people who are familiar with this. And now think about if you know someone who's had a concussion before. This is where we get many people who either know someone or maybe them themselves have experienced a concussion before. So these are all considered brain injuries. But now there are different types of brain injuries. There's an acquired brain injury, which is an injury to the brain that has occurred after birth. This is a stroke, brain tumor, or an aneurysm. And now there is a traumatic brain injury. This is an insult to the brain caused by an external physical force. This could be falling down the stairs, car crash, or getting hit in the head. Today we'll be focusing on traumatic brain injuries. Looks like I might be on a little delay here. I think I'm getting some of your answers in the chat. Thank you for sharing. See, someone knows someone with a brain tumor. Someone is sharing their experience and has also stated concussions are prevalent in youth sports. Yes, they are extremely relevant in youth sports. And we're seeing a lot of it now that it's being well known. We talk to a lot of students who are involved in sports. So thank you for sharing. So that brings me to my first trivia question. How often does a traumatic brain injury occur in the United States? You could answer in the chat. A, every 60 minutes, B, every 4 days, C, every 7.5 hours, or D, every 21 seconds. I'll take some time to wait a little bit so everyone could put their answers in the chat. Okay, so I see some good answers. I'll wait a little bit longer. Okay, so the correct answer is D. So for every 21 seconds that occurs, someone will sustain a traumatic brain injury. Now, traumatic brain injuries are referred to as the silent epidemic. This is because when someone has a brain injury, since it's our brain and we can't see inside of someone's head, we're not able to see that they have a brain injury. So they look just like you and I. Also, another reason that it's referred to as the silent epidemic is because even though many people may suffer a TBI, many people don't talk about it or it goes underreported. So while I'm with you for this 1 hour, 180 people worldwide will sustain a TBI. Now, looking at the numbers on a statewide level, 12 to 15,000 people per year right here in the state of New Jersey will have a TBI. And looking at the numbers on a national level, 5.3 million Americans are living with a TBI. So thinking about those numbers, 5.3 million Americans, that's a little bit over the state population of South Carolina. So that many people are living with a TBI. That's why it's important to spread awareness about this and also do what we can to try to prevent a TBI from occurring. Now, our brains are so important. They control everything that we do, they control how we think, how we feel, and also different parts of our brain control our mood, memory, language, and personality. All of our brains are different. So, this is why we have different personalities from one another. And since it plays a crucial role in our well being, we must try our best to take care of our brains and protect it from potential injuries, including concussions. We have some people sharing in the chat. My friend's husband had a TBI event when he suddenly collapsed, but he's recovering. That's possible. Yes, we all have different forms of recovery. If someone has a TBI, TBI looks different for a lot of people. Okay, so getting into the topic of discussion, car crashes are one of the many causes of traumatic brain injuries. Now, it is a shared responsibility. As I mentioned before, when I was talking about the Share the Road pledge, we only have one roadway and many people use the roads. So we have a shared responsibility to look out for each other. So we need to do what we can to keep everyone safe, and that includes not being distracted. Now, take a look at these pictures. In the transportation safety field, we don't use the word accident because, as it says in the slide, 94% of crashes are preventable. Crashes don't happen by chance. As it states here, the reason crashes occur is often the last failure in a casual chain of events leading up to the crash. So think about it. As much as 94% of crashes are preventable. Now, looking at the National Highway Traffic Safety Association facts, they listed the critical reasons for crashes are under driver related, there is recognition error. So there's driver inattention, maybe someone's on their cell phone on a call, maybe they're texting and driving. There's internal and external distractions. So, internal distractions, maybe you're not focused on what's on the road. Maybe you're mentally distracted, mentally thinking about something else going on you have in your day. And external distractions, maybe you're looking on at billboards that are on the streets, and that's distracting you from looking at the road. And there's also inadequate surveillance. So, you're not scanning for pedestrians. When we're driving, we're so used to looking for oh, sorry about that. We're so used to looking for other cars on the road as well as maybe other people, but we have to look out for maybe bicyclists, we have to look out for motorcyclists, we have to look out for other people who are sharing the road aside from vehicles. Now, under driver related, there's also decision error. There is speeding. We live in the state of New Jersey. Everybody loves to go fast in the state of New Jersey, and we're very much people who are on the go. But we have to take into account safety when it comes to speeding. There are speed limits for a reason. There's false assumption of others. So sometimes people will think another driver is going when they're not actually, and vice versa. And there's also the misjudgment of gaps and other people's speeds. Now, there are also environmental reasons for crashes. Maybe there's slick roads, so when it's a little bit colder out, you want to be careful of any light and any ice going on the road. And also, there is loose debris possibly that you want to be careful of. And also, it is raining today, so when it's raining out, when it's pouring or snowing, you want to also be careful of those factors. And also, many people don't think about this, but there are vehicle related reasons for crashes as well. So we want to be sure that our tires, wheels, brakes, everything in our car is up to speed and okay with maintenance. So we want to make sure we are aware of all of these things. Now, what can we do as drivers to be safe? The best thing we could do is to avoid distractions. We've seen a strong increase in distracted driving over the last few years. So we always recommend to set up your GPS, podcast, or music ahead of time. That way you won't be distracted while you're driving. Now there are three types of distracted driving. Now let's talk about it. There are visual distractions. A visual distraction is any time eyes are taken off the road. So, an example of this is maybe you're on social media. So, you're checking a Snapchat or TikTok notification, maybe Instagram or Facebook you're looking at. But I promise you, the notification will still be there once you arrive safely at your destination. So, we always recommend for people to turn on Do Not Disturb while they're driving. There is looking at your phone to figure out directions. Maybe we're looking at the little blue arrow that's pointing to us where to go. But before we're looking at our GPS directions while we're driving, we always recommend to look up the directions prior. That way you have an idea of where you're going. We have some people making comments saying some don't use social media, so that's very good. That way you don't get distracted. And also another type of visual distraction is dropping something and looking to see where it fell. So anytime your eyes are off the road, you're being visually distracted. So we want to keep our eyes on the road. That way we're able to check our surroundings while we're driving. Now that brings me to our next trivia question. So it takes an average of 4 to 5 seconds to read a text. How far do you think you travel in that amount of time at 50 miles per hour? Is it A, 10 feet, B, 100 feet, C, 100 yards, or D, 1,000 yards? I'll just give some time in the chat to let everybody answer. Okay, so the correct answer is 100 yards. So 100 yards might not seem like a lot in your head, but that is actually equivalent to the length of a football field. So that's how far you're traveling in a matter of 4 to 5 seconds if you look away maybe at your phone and you're traveling at 50 miles per hour. Now, there are also manual distractions. A manual distraction is when you're taking your hands off the wheel to do something else. An example of a manual distraction is turning the volume down, maybe you're changing a song on your phone, getting something out of your backpack, purse, or your bag. Eating and drinking is a big one. We all sometimes use the drive-through and can't wait to dig in, but it's best to wait until you're home. And also combing your hair, maybe doing your makeup, but we all want to make sure that we have both hands on the wheel when we're driving so we can have control of our vehicle. Now, the next type of distraction is a cognitive distraction. A cognitive distraction is when you're taking your focus off driving and you're not paying attention and you're emotionally not there. So maybe you're stressed because you have a test, maybe you're stressed in general, maybe you're thinking about a meet or a club or a hobby that you have, maybe after work that you have planned. And a lot of the time, daydreaming. Daydreaming is extremely common, and sometimes when we're driving, we fall into autopilot because we've been doing it for so long. But we have to be sure that we're alert and aware. That way, we're not distracted by any of these things, and that we're not daydreaming, and that we're aware of the road. Now, this video will show you why it's important not to be on your phone or distracted while you're driving.
Victor Paul Queen 975. Gonna be at 6290 South Cook Street.
844. Oh, call back for 8622 Central. Negative K, nothing further. Just kitty candy on the corner. I see a Sergeant in Central. Chief Sergeant check. Hey, Central, fire arrival. Hi, 10 flight, 6290.
Okay, so in the video, we saw someone was on their phone, they were distracted while they were driving. So this was actually, it was not in the state of New Jersey, but it was for a PSA video. Everybody is safe, thankfully. And so in this video, we see someone is distracted while they're driving, but also not only were they distracted, but someone else ran a stop sign. So the person who was distracted was not ready to do defensive driving. And so we have to be sure that we're not distracted because we don't know what's going on in other people's cars. That way, when we're alert, when we're aware, we're ready for anything that could possibly happen. And so, right here on the screen, there are many distractions up here. So, say maybe someone's on their phone answering a text, maybe they're hungry, so they're trying to grab a Nature Valley bar out of their bag. Maybe they're reaching over, spilled some coffee. They're trying to look at the GPS and change some music. Then it starts to rain, there's trucks driving by, there's construction cones. As I mentioned before, there's also billboards, people talking in the passenger seat, and also some more signs on the road. Now, this could just be a regular drive for someone. We have so much going on in our surroundings that there are so many chances for us to be distracted, but we want to be sure that we're focused. Now, in the chat, can we name some visual, cognitive, and manual distractions? I'll give some time for everyone to write their answers. Cell phones, that's a big distraction. And a lot of these distractions are overlapping. So say if we're texting, we're not just having a manual distraction because our hand is away from the wheel. We also have a visual distraction because we're looking at our phones. Okay, I'll give it a little bit more time in case anyone else wants to answer in the chat. Road events, that's very true. As I mentioned before, there's so much going on the road. Sometimes when there's construction or if we see a crash on the side, a lot of people will look over and be distracted by that. Okay, so wonderful answers, everyone. Thank you. Now, this is why multitasking is so dangerous. Realistically, our brains don't actually multitask. They switch between the two tasks quickly. So even though we might be switching, we're less focused on the tasks at hand. So this is why we need to make sure we're not multitasking while we're driving, because if we try to do that, we'll be less focused on driving. And I see another answer from the previous slide, people are saying other drivers. Yes, that's true. So this is why we have to be focused on what we're doing in case other drivers aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Now, another thing we have to be an alert of aware of are larger vehicles. So due to blind spots, the drivers of these vehicles may not be able to see you. So we have to make sure that we're out of their no zones. That way we can be safe. And another large vehicle that we have to watch out for are school buses. We know when we see a school bus and it has that stop sign out that we are supposed to stop after the school bus and make sure that we're not driving ahead of it or passing by. We all know this, but unfortunately, not everyone does this. So in Indiana, someone went around a stopped school bus and 3 children from the same family were struck and killed. They did a study one day in Montclair. In a 24-hour period, they counted how many people passed buses that were stopped, and 175 people in one day didn't stop and went around the buses. So this is why we have to be aware. of buses that are stopped because there are also most likely students around that vehicle. As I mentioned before, it might not be you who's distracted. There might be drivers with children in the back seat who are talking a lot. There might be pedestrians who are distracted, maybe people who are lost and looking for directions, and more. So it's important that we stay focused and control what goes on inside our own cars. Next, we'll be talking about impaired driving. So that includes driving under the influence of alcohol, legal drugs such as prescriptions. Now, on some medication bottles, it'll instruct you and say, do not operate heavy machinery while on this prescription. A lot of people think forklifts for some reason, but the heavy machinery they are talking about is operating a vehicle. So you also have to be aware of the prescriptions you are taking and see if you're going to be able to drive while taking them. Also, illegal drugs. And back on the topic of legal drugs, actually, New Jersey recently legalized marijuana, so we also have to be careful about driving while we're on that type of drug as well. And there's also drowsy driving. So, impaired driving includes drowsy driving because when someone's not alert, when someone's not focused, maybe they'll be a little tired, sleepy, they're not able to drive as well. Also, in New Jersey, as of 2019, we're what we call an all offender state. So if you get one DUI with a 0.8 or higher BAC, the legal limit for which an adult and many people would be intoxicated at, you would have to get a breathalyzer put in your car. The vehicle will lock and you must wait up to 30 minutes before trying to drive again. Now let's talk about speeding. As it states here, for more than 2 decades, speeding has been involved in approximately 1/3 of all motor vehicle fatalities. In 2020, speeding was a contributing factor in 29% of all traffic fatalities. Now, I just want to see thumbs up or thumbs down in the chat, or yes or no. Do you think 10 miles per hour makes a big difference in a crash? Okay, I see some people saying yes. So yes, it does make a big difference. Us as drivers, we may not notice when we're going 10 miles per hour faster, but a pedestrian will notice. So going through this image, if a vehicle is driving at 20 miles per hour, if a pedestrian is struck, 9 out of 10 pedestrians will survive. But now you're going a little bit faster, maybe you're not really thinking about your speed, maybe you're at 30 miles per hour now. If a pedestrian is hit, only 5 out of 10 pedestrians will survive. But now you're zooming, you're going 40 miles per hour, and if a pedestrian is hit at 40 miles per hour, only 1 out of 10 pedestrians survive. So we have to be mindful of our speed, not just for our own safety, but for the safety of everybody else who shares the road with us. And right here, you could see the different types of speeding tickets that you'll get and points on your license for the amount of miles per hour over the speed limit that you're going. Now, speaking of laws, there is also the safe passing laws. So do we all know the move over law for emergency vehicles? So for emergency vehicles, if they have their lights on, it's on us to slow down and move over so they can pass through. Similar to that law, the safe passing law, if you pass by someone who's on a bike or maybe a walking pedestrian, it is our job as drivers to slow down, move over, and pass with care when we can. We share the road with more than just cars, so important that the bicyclists, motorcyclists, and pedestrians, as well as us, the drivers, are all safe. Now, seatbelts are extremely important. They're not a contributing factor to crashes, but they are to fatalities. And in 2018, seatbelts saved almost 15,000 lives. And luckily, seatbelt use is at a 90% in the US, but we want to get that to 100%. Now, the most common type of car crash is same direction rear end crash. Now, we know a lot of people who don't wear seatbelts in the back seat, unfortunately. So when people don't wear their seatbelts in the back seat, think about where are they going to go if they get into a rear end crash? They're going to go right into the seats in front of them. So even if their friends, even if the people they're driving with, if they're wearing their seatbelts, if the person in the back isn't, they could cause serious injury to the people in front of them as well as themselves. So these images are what it looks like when someone gets into a rear end crash and someone isn't wearing their seatbelt. As you could see, they hit their head, they hit their knees, they crash into the front of the car in all different types of ways. So this is why it's important to wear your seatbelt in every single seat of the car. And also as a driver, you're responsible for all the passengers in your car. So make sure that everybody has a seatbelt before you're on the go. Now, again, I just want to see a yes or no, maybe thumbs up, thumbs down in the chat. Is pedestrian safety an issue in the state of New Jersey? So I see some thumbs up and some yeses. So it is. New Jersey is one of the most densely populated states, if not the most densely populated state in the US. So that's why we have to be even more aware of pedestrians. So now back to the basics. Whenever possible, we need to have our heads up, use crosswalks, and wait for the walk symbol. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, yes, this is one of the basics. We always try to use crosswalks. But most pedestrians are hit at non-intersection locations because people sometimes jaywalk, they sometimes can't wait until there's a crosswalk, but it's best to go at crosswalks when drivers are expecting you there. When you're jaywalking, drivers are not prepared to stop for you. So please have your heads up, use crosswalks, and wait for the walk symbol. Also, if we have any maybe young children, if we have nieces and nephews that we're watching over, maybe younger cousins, they learn by watching us. And so when I go to elementary schools and I teach them, I tell them they have to always walk with a grown-up. They get so proud to tell me about their grown-ups in their lives that keep them safe. They tell me they walk with their dad, they walk with their older cousin, they walk with their aunt and uncle. So you have to be careful about the safety habits that you have and making sure that you're looking up, making sure you're crossing at crosswalks, because they will watch you and follow in the same habits. We also want to be sure as pedestrians that we are making eye contact with drivers. So yes or no, when cars have a green light or a green turn arrow, pedestrians will also have the walk symbol. Okay, so I'm seeing some mixed answers in the chat. So the answer is actually true. If you're trying to cross the street and a car is going straight or maybe trying to turn, they'll have the same green go symbol as you. So it's important to make eye contact with the driver because even though pedestrians have the right of way, sometimes a driver might try to cut you off or a driver might not see you. So it's very important to make eye contact so that way you know when you're going or when the car is going to be driving. Now, as pedestrians and as drivers, we also have to watch out for other people. So say maybe someone older is using the crosswalk. If someone's older, they might take a little bit more time to walk across and make it to their destination. So as drivers, we have to be more patient. And also, maybe little kids are playing out in the yard. Warmer weather is coming, so they may be playing with each other. They throw a ball, and then it ends up in the street. So we also have to be aware of them because sometimes when a ball goes into the street, a child will follow right after. So we have to be aware of all of our surroundings. Now, also, if we're a pedestrian, we have to walk facing traffic. That way, if anything happens, we can make eye contact with drivers and we could flag them down and we could easily communicate with them and they could see us. But if we're on a bike, that changes because when we're on a bike, we're on what's considered a non motorized vehicle. So then we're traveling with traffic. If we're pedestrians, we also want to be cautious at night. We want to wear bright colors and reflective materials and have lights on with us. Has anyone ever driven at night and all of a sudden someone pops out of nowhere who's a pedestrian and you couldn't see them? I know oftentimes when I'm driving around my own town, I'll be driving and it won't be until I'm super close that I see a pedestrian on the sidewalk because they're wearing darker colors. I see yeses in the chat. So that's why it's important. If you're ever the pedestrian, think about how hard it is to see people as a driver. You want to be wearing brighter colors. I know a lot of the times, if we're pedestrians, our pets are pedestrians too. So we want to have bright leashes and bright collars for them. And also, if we're on a bicycle, it's actually the law to have a white light in the front of your bike and a red light in the back of your bike. Now, these are just some different types of lights that you could get off of Amazon, and also reflective tape that you could use as well if you don't have reflective material. Okay, so now that we talked about ways to be safe, I do have this short PSA video so we could better understand why it's so important to not fall into autopilot and to be aware of our surroundings.
Boys. Me too. I know, right? She was like my favorite. Wait, isn't it the season finale? Janie likes Ryan. Janie likes
Girls. She sort of does like him, though, right?
Muffin! Go! Go!
Have fun. What happened?
Goggles.
Those goggles. Bye. Hey, I'll pick you up at 3.
Hey, don't freak out.
Uh-oh, what?
The kids left the gate open. You with Janie?
Just dropped them all off at the pool. Where's Muffin?
No idea. Honey, this is like the second time this week.
Maybe he's at the Millers again.
If I find him, I'll let you know.
I'm gonna be so late. I gotta go. Love you.
Hi, love you.
Muffin! Was that Janie's mom?
Who are you?
I'm Justin. I live up the road. Do you mind dropping me off?
Sure, but, you know Janie?
I'm a friend of hers at school.
I used to love soccer when I was your age.
Yeah, it's fun.
What position you want to play?
Striker.
Ladies love strikers. Which house is it?
A couple more.
You really shouldn't be out here by yourself.
Are you 40?
Yes, I mean, he's our dog.
Do you want to answer that?
Nah, I never with a kid in the car.
It's okay. I'm not here. I'm there.
Okay, so the message of this video is that if you wouldn't text with a child in the car, why text in general? So we have to make sure that we're not distracted, we're not texting and driving, that we're staying focused, we're not daydreaming. That way we could keep everyone safe. So we have to retrain our brain to think differently about traffic safety. It's easy to fall into autopilot, especially since we've been driving for so long, but sometimes it's always good to have that reminder about safety to keep ourselves safe and to keep everyone on the road safe. So be the safe friend, be the responsible parent, be the safe family member, and lead by example. And remember the tips that I've shared with you today, and feel free to share them with your loved ones as well. So thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate it.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Noelle. If anybody does have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to address them. Just an observation, a personal observation. I've noticed that not only has the navigation and radio and all that now gone into touchscreens, but so has climate control. And I find that it's extremely distracting trying to adjust my climate controls on the touchscreen, especially with the delays from when you touch the thing setting. And I just find that very annoying that I can't focus on the road because everything now is through a screen rather than buttons, which you can more easily navigate to, at least while keeping your eyes on the road, things like that.
And research has shown that touch screens, if you have a phone that maybe connects to your Bluetooth, even if it's not handheld, they are just as distracting.
Of the three types of distracted driving, which is the cause for the most accidents? Or
We
do they not
actually
know that?
we actually see a combination of a lot of it. So majority of the time, it will be the manual and visual distractions because those most of the time fall hand in hand. Thank you so much, everyone, for your kind comments in the chat. Yeah, so someone mentioned in the chat, we have to pay more attention. And also, if we have something going on our phones, maybe we have to take a call, we see a notification. It's best if we wait until, we're ready. We wait until we're in a spot that's safe, and then we start driving. So thank you, everyone.
Well, I don't see any questions or anything coming in. Anything you want to end with, Noelle?
No, just as a reminder that these are all factual information that I provided you. This could be easily looked up. So crashes are still happening every day, especially in New Jersey. We see injuries and fatalities increasing. So be a part of the safe group of people who are helping to decrease that number. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Noelle. And again, yes, thank you everybody for attending. Please look out for the follow-up email. It'll include a copy of the slides, a link to the recording, So you'll have all this information to utilize later. So everybody, I hope you have a wonderful day. Be safe, be well, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.